When someone asks, who lived in ancient Greece? It seems reasonable to say, ancient Greeks. However, the Greeks were not the first people to settle in ancient Greece. In fact, there were people from other civilizations living there, as well as Greeks, even during the classical era. The non-Greek tribes of ancient Greece will be the main subject of this movie. In the second millennium BC, the ancestors of the ancient Greeks moved from the north to the Balkan Peninsula. The people who lived before them were called Pelasgians by them. The great historian of antiquity, Herodotus, described them as the spectral occupants of a past existence in which Hellas was also referred to as Pelasgia. Though contemporary researchers believe they were descended from Neolithic farmers who moved from fertile Asia Minor, their origins are still tantalizingly unclear. A mythical ruler by the name of Pelasgos was said to have ruled the untamed and old territory of Arcadia. According to a reassuring legend, he was praised for having given these early Greeks the comforts of huts and decent clothes, the foundations of civilization. Their presence echoed in place names, as shown in the name Larissa in Thessaly, a presumed center of their culture, scattered across the geography of Hellas like fallen stones. Stories about Pelasgian settlers were also whispered in the ear of ancient Athens, although they were portrayed as fresh arrivals from the windswept shores of Samothrace. Their hard work contributed to the development of communities outside of the continent, such as in the sun-drenched island of Sicily, the Aegean Islands, and the outskirts of Asia Minor. But the Pelasgians were ghosts by the time of the classical era. Ever the perceptive observer, Herodotus noticed their odd departure and surmised that they had silently assimilated with the growing Greek populace. The only people who appeared to have any remnant of a connection to this lost culture were the tough Molossians, who lived in the northwest corner of Greece. A monument to their old pedigree, they were credited with erecting the renowned Oracle of Zeus at Dodona. The fiery mother of Alexander the Great, Olympias, did in fact descend from the Molossian kingdom, a sliver of a people long relegated to the annals of history. The Carians were among the enigmatic characters that came before the Greeks. They and the Pelasgians shared Arcadia. Feathering through our sources, the Carians are revered by the later Greeks as remnants of a vanished era, while Strabo locates them on the northern beaches of Asia Minor. Homer portrays them as Trojan allies. Were these Arcadian Carians the surviving members of a prehistoric migration from Asia Minor? Or were they a Pelasgian splinter tribe, sharing a name that was unsettlingly similar? The Leleges are another pre-Hellenic tribe with strong ties to the Pelasgians. According to Herodotus, they are islanders from the Cyclades who live in the Aegean. According to history, they were ruled by the Cretan kings and paid tribute by producing expert rowers. In Asia Minor, where they coexisted with the Carians, some Leleges were even relocated by the Cretans. The interesting idea becomes apparent when we look at allusions to Leleges living in Boeotia. Moreover, references to the Lulahi inhabitants of Western Asia Minor have been found in Hittite tablets, dating back to the second millennium BC. Are these Hittite Lulahi and the Greek Leleges whispers of the same tribe resonating through the ages? One of the oldest civilizations in history, the Minoans, were raised on Crete, a stunning island located to the south of the Balkan Peninsula. This moniker, given to the mythical ruler Minos by 19th century archaeologists, is a moving reminder of how incomplete our knowledge is. With their excavations at Knossos, Heinrich Schliemann, and then Sir Arthur Evans, gave life to this long-lost world. However, their findings reveal intriguing puzzles. Minoan lettering engraved on clay discs remains obstinately unreadable, hiding the true language and identity of these intelligent people. The Minoan flame had faded by the middle of the second millennium BC, leaving only mythological echoes by the time the classical Greeks lived. There may or may not be remnants of a bygone past, the legends of the formidable Minos. his terrifying son Minotaur, the clever Daedalus, and his unfortunate son Icarus. Eteocretans, Curetes, and Sidonians are mentioned in Homer's antiquated Odyssey, suggesting that Minoan ancestors may still exist. However, the details are still lost in the mists of prehistory. The tiny island of Delos, which is located in the Aegean Sea, was extremely important to the ancient Greeks, since it was thought to be the birthplace of the gods Apollo and Artemis. During the classical era, many Greeks took great delight in dying on the hallowed ground of the sacred sanctuary of Delos, as well as in making pilgrimages there. The tiny island eventually grew into a sizable necropolis over time. The sanctuary was guarded by the Athenians in 425 BC, when the Achaeans enforced stringent laws that forbade both birth and death on the island. Furthermore, they started the reinterment process. It was shocking to them to learn that a large percentage of the dead residents were Carians rather than Greeks. According to Thucydides, they were identified by the fashion of the arms buried with them and by the method of interment, which was the same as the Carians still follow. Thucydides claims that the Carians were once a bunch of pirates who came to Delos, but were eventually driven out by Minos. They later settled in the seaside nation of Caria, which is located to the west of Asia Minor. Herodotus, on the other hand, saw things differently. It was his contention that the Carians had always lived there. It's interesting to note that both Herodotus and his father, Lixus, were of Carian descent. Herodotus came from the Greek-built city of Halicarnassus in Caria. The Carians' language allows them to be classified as Indo-Europeans. They clearly originated in Asia Minor at the same time as the Greeks in Greece. But rather than the Cyclades Islands, the Bosphorus is where they originated. The Carians had retained their unique language and religion, but had adopted many Greek customs by the time of Herodotus and Thucydides. Because farming was difficult due to the rocky terrain, they chose to live at sea and developed into expert mercenaries, pirates, and sailors. Remarkably, Carian inscriptions have been discovered as far away as Nubia, which is located on the boundary between modern-day Egypt and Sudan. Alexander the Great seized control of Caria in 334 BC. The Carians then progressively assimilated into Greek society and culture. Greece is a country whose diverse population goes well beyond the blonde hair of legendary figures. Its very fabric is woven with the threads of the Phoenicians, or Canaanites. The ancient Middle Eastern nation of Canaan, whose name is still mentioned in the Bible, was the home of these Semitic explorers. Their naval power altered the Mediterranean world, and their city-states flourished in the late 2nd and early 1st millennia BC. The Phoenicians bravely ventured into the Atlantic and led the colonization of the Mediterranean, thanks to their groundbreaking invention, the big, decked ship. Even stories of their daring circumnavigation of Africa are related by Herodotus. Like Carthage in North Africa, its colonies grew into independent, powerful maritime nations. Around the 2nd millennium BC, when the Achaeans were colonizing Cyprus, the Phoenicians and Greeks had their first encounters. The Greeks were momentarily undermined by the fall of the Mycenaean civilization, which allowed the Phoenicians to establish their dominance along the expanding trade routes. Homer sings of their merrymaking among the Greeks. However, their conversations went beyond simple business dealings. Within Greece, the Phoenicians founded settlements. They were particularly drawn to the islands of the Aegean. On Seriphos, Rhodes, Samothrace, and Santorini, colonies sprang up. They established the city of Itanos on Crete. They were able to export brilliant semi-precious stones and rare metal ores because to these well-positioned hubs. They were also felt on the Greek mainland. The fabled father of Thebes, Cadmus, was actually the son of the Phoenician monarch Agenor. Zeus swept Europa, Cadmus' sister, away in a most spectacular elopement. Europa is inextricably related to the large continent that we now name Europe. The Phoenician influence in Greece started to wane by the 7th century BC. The Greeks were not, however, apathetic beneficiaries. They eagerly assimilated aspects of this civilization from the East. The adoption of the Phoenician alphabet, which marked the beginning of a new era of written communication, was arguably the most important contribution. Therefore, the Phoenicians were more than just traders and colonists. They were unintentionally the forerunners of a revolution on paper that would fundamentally change the trajectory of Greek and, eventually, Western culture. Contrary to popular belief, ancient Greece left behind a more varied legacy. Even though the Greeks considered non-Greeks to be barbarians, they were fast to accept and assimilate their achievements. As such, the contributions of non-Greek tribes to the historical fabric of ancient Greece must not be disregarded.